Hello and welcome to GM Tips. I'm your host, Satine Phoenix, co-creator of Maze Arcana and a dungeon master on Fury's Reach. First, I'd like to say thank you to everyone in the comments section for taking the time to ask questions. Well, really, first, thank you for watching, but also, I really want to answer your questions. So, you can ask on Twitter or on this video at #AskSatine. One of the questions that keeps coming up is, how do I get my players to roleplay? So that's the theme of today's show, how to get players to roleplay. You asked, and here's our answer. This set of answers is for players at one-shot games. Some games, like at conventions or dropping in on a friend's quick game, you don't have the luxury of finding the perfect players for your style. You only have a couple hours to run folks through your adventure, and you want to make sure they're playing along your style of GMing. How do you get players to roleplay? Tip number 1, do by doing. If you want to encourage your players to roleplay, you should show them how by role-playing. They will take your lead. You can show your players how to do this by acting out your NPCs. Showing the players how to interact with the world by interacting with the world. Say your NPC is a shop owner. By saying, the shop owner reaches up and takes a bottle off the wall, dusts it off, wipes the dirt onto his shirt, handing it to you and says, "Here you go, 6 silver. Your player might respond with, Vlanya reaches into her purse and pulls out 5 silver pieces and says, "How about 5 for that old bottle?" Or you might just say, "I give him 6 silver. But if you pantomime your NPC looking up at the shelves, reaching up for it, taking down a pretend bottle, blowing the dust off, wiping it on his shirt, handing her the pretend bottle and saying in a heavy accent, "Here you go, 6 silver." Your player should, and maybe with some encouragement, reach into an invisible coin purse, count out some coins, look up at you and reply in her own accent, "How about 5 for that old bottle?" Tip number 2, tell them. Pretty straightforward here. Just tell them how you want them to act. If they say an action and you want them to act it out, you can simply say, "Okay, now show me what that would look like," or act it out. If they constantly refer to their character by their character's name, Vlanya does this, Vlanya does that, and you want them to say I this, I that, then you need to just be upfront and tell them. Condition them by correcting them every time they say so-and-so does this. It might feel like a dick move, but it's your table. If you really want them to play to your style, you have to tell them. Tip number 3, give them a reason. I know these one-shots are super fast, but referring back to our Keith Baker episode, give them a reason to want to roleplay. Help the player flesh out their character a bit more so they know where to pull these character traits from. Why would they have a gruff voice? Maybe their charisma stat is so high or low that it drastically defines their personality. Maybe it's a skill with a high modifier that changes their personality. Character background really helps your players be more invested. Help them. Some people will be too shy and you'll have to wait for them to get comfortable with everyone at the table. Some people just refuse to roleplay, and in these brief games you have to understand that you'll have a few players like this. Just keep it fun when you express what kind of game you run. I could roll on about this, but instead, I'd like to go into detail on ways for you GMs to develop your NPCs to encourage roleplay in your game with Percy from Critical Role, voice actor, and one of the apples of my eye, Mr. Taliesin Jaffe. I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so happy to be here. This is
good,
great.
because we have things to share with the audience.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you're here to share your tips on how to make the NPCs a little more, not a little, a lot more interesting.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, especially gaming with Matt Mercer all the time, that you start to feel a little cowed by his presence, by his power, by the things that he can pull off the cuff. And it's important to remember that there was a time where I remember a time where I was playing with other people and DMing my own games, and I had some tricks and ways of getting players who were players to be actors and getting my actors to really help elevate everything in the game.
So it was more improv for you.
It's a lot of improv. It's been my favorite use of improv. It's also a lot of theater tricks and also directing tricks. Just working with actors, you learn ways of coaxing people to do what it is you need.
Teach me the ways. I want to know the ways. Because those are the things that I'm not really good at. I mean, I'm good at getting people to imagine things in their head, and I can illustrate things for them, you know, and they close their eyes. But I feel like you have some things that you can do with your body, with your voice to help pull it out better?
There are a few that I've developed. One is actually is something that we use in animation direction. I use in animation direction a lot. It's the Pirates of the Caribbean effect, which there'll be a few Disney references. If you've ever been on Pirates of the Caribbean, and if not, you can YouTube it. It's a ride where you go and you see a whole bunch of pirates and they're doing a bunch of stuff and there's this whole great story arc and you kind of are on a boat the whole time, but you only spend like 3 seconds with each of these robot pirates that are there.
Yes!
And so you're only really making, they're only coming to your field of view for just a few seconds, but you get these instantaneous and very visceral responses to them. They have a lot of character and they have a lot of energy, and if you ever get stuck on the ride, which has happened to me many a times, you start to notice once you're around these pirates for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, that their faces are just horrific.
Yeah.
They're these big, just horrible, almost monstrous looking deformed
Grotesque.
faces. And a lot of it is because they know that they only have a few seconds of interaction with you, so it's not about depth, it's about hitting you over the head with a hammer with one thing so hard that it just instantly is engaging. In the film, they call this being a character actor. It's like those actors who play those parts over and over again that are a little quirky and awkward and have something to do with their face or their voice, but you instantly know a lot about who they are just by looking at them. People like Steve Buscemi, Clancy Brown, Danny Trejo, or like who would be some of the women, Ruth Gordon, or I've got a couple down here, Betty White.
Oh, yeah.
We instantly know a lot about Betty White before she
just her
talks,
silhouette.
just because she's there,
Yeah.
and you know kind of what you're in for. And so you can kind of start to give people clues, these big, broad clues of what they're in for, just by instantly coming out with one strong, visceral emotion. Is this character attracted to any of the members of the group? Are they conservative? Are they cold? Are they bright? Are they a little dim-witted? And you can hold on to that one thing, and that one thing can get you, especially if it's a one-shot, you don't need to know where they were born, although probably not that far from where they are. You need to only know their first name, maybe their last name if you have to pull it out of a bag. But you've got so much that your characters are going to be trying to be prodding with that they're going to be too busy trying to deal with this broad. Gilmore's a good example. He started very broad and very slowly became more intricate over several years, but it just started with Matt Mercer going, "Hello, how are you?" And then from there it became this very complicated character, but it was just showmanship that then got added to.
Well, you named it when we were talking in the pre-interview. You said something about the 7 Dwarves.
The 7 Dwarves. That was my cheat sheet. If you don't really understand archetypes or you haven't really thought about it, and that's great because there's a lot of things to know in the world. I used to play with a rocket scientist, and bless her, she didn't have to know this stuff. Easy. I used to just keep a list by my screen. It just said sleepy, happy, dopey, grumpy, sneezy, bashful, doc.
Nice.
And then it also said male, female, and it also said high, mid, low. And I would instantly just pick 3. If they were running into somebody, I would just like put my finger down on 3 and be like, sleepy, low, male. And then I would sort of slouch and let your posture does amazing things to your voice and also the way people interact with you. I get tired and I would put my voice down and it would just sort of become Patrick Warburton. What are you gonna do, you know? He's not unhappy to see him. He's just really doesn't want to be there anymore. It's fine. And that's somebody that they now have to deal with. And there's no accents that you have to learn for that. It's just, are you putting your voice in your chest? Are you putting it right in the center of your throat? Or are you putting it higher in your head? And in your nose and getting a little nasal. And those are just 3 places everybody has.
That's really cool. I never thought about that before. The posture.
Yeah.
The low.
And then you can get low and kind of higher posture and you get a little bit more correct.
And then the middle is just like middle.
And
it's like normal.
People will always naturally try and mirror what you're doing.
I'm totally mirroring you.
Yeah, no, people want to be more like the people they're talking with. And just that interaction will cause your players to interact with them even as people, if not characters yet, if they're not at that point. And then you can do things like I used to give like a -2 for like Sneezy, who was always sick. So I give him a -2 to con saves. Just easy little character stuff. So if they're like trying to poison him, he's going to go down, or feed him bad food, he's going to go down real fast. Yeah. But like a little faster, I give him +2 to smart so that he can't be tricked to give them a better deal. And you reward them for that. And like the more that they interact and play to just that one thing you're giving them, if they give them some emergency, for example, if you're playing Sneezy, thanks guys. You give them a deal, you reward them. There's a few cheaper health potions because they saw something and then they reacted to it. Nice. It's great. It's easy. You got a list.
I like your list. Yeah, I want to see more of your list.
Very bad handwriting.
We also discussed painting or sketching basic personalities.
This kind of basic personality sketching is super, super easy. Usually in one game, if they're running into an NPC, if your players are going to talk to an NPC that you haven't planned for and haven't already sat down and started to like figure out their motives, you're not going to need to know a lot. You're just going to need to know basically half of what you would have to know about someone that you met at a party at a bar. Have one dumb story if you have to. You can have them on the side like drunk in a river. There's a couple dumb drinking stories, maybe something a little throwaway, like I once stole a jelly donut from the bakery down the street, and you just have that one little thing. And if someone's like, have you ever done something terrible? Have you ever like maybe broken the law? And then you have jelly donut over here, and if you're playing Doc in a light voice, and he's very studious, as I may have once taken an extra cream puff, perhaps. And take your time. You don't have to answer quickly. That's the other thing is people see people being very witty and having a retort. But if I do like let me pick something just so they know I haven't prepared this at all. I'll do Dopey and Cream Puff. Okay. Dopey, Mid, and Cream Puff. And haven't you ever done anything like a little weird or stolen anything before? I've just like took 6 seconds before even answering you, just sitting going, what am I going to say?
But that says so much.
Buy your time. And you have tons of time to think of something silly or fun or dumb. People love dumb. Don't be afraid to be dumb. People laugh at dumb. I may have stolen cream puffs, but I don't know. My brother worked there. And like, just start getting weird and trail up. People love stupid. Stupid is okay. You can be wrong. You can not know things. If they're asking you questions, you can just, I don't know what you're talking about. Do you like a cream puff? So it's very simple little things that you can do just to divert, to push, and create fun little instances that are literally based off a graph.
So you have these characters who are simple and easy to put together and throw in. Once you are playing a little bit longer, maybe you reintroduce this NPC to the characters. How do you quickly build a more in-depth character?
The quickest way to make a character who you've already sketched out a little more in depth is, well, you're already, you know they're there. If you're clever, you've written down just a little grumpy low voice. Let's do a grumpy low voice. Works at shop. And now you're sitting at this place where you got the grumpy low voice guy works at shop. His name is Kevin or something, whatever you've decided it's going to be. The best way to get to know somebody is to have any kind of interaction with another person. That's where we learn about people. So either you can make another NPC for them to talk to, or if that sounds like too much talking to yourself, and that can be a thing, somebody to talk about. And just even a second of like thinking about Kevin having some sort of weird issue with a guy who works down the street. And just being a little aggressive about it. And that way the next time the players come in there and he's like, those nice shoes. You didn't buy those from Phil, did you? I can't be doing business with you. Those things are going to fall off you right away. You need new shoes. What are you even thinking talking to that guy? That's terrible. And just that much, people are not going to generally ask you, what's your wife's name? And if you can't think of one, I'm not married. Do you think anybody would marry me? Are you crazy? You can answer without answering, and you can have moments of vulnerability, and you can think about things they want. And if they offer you something and it's not on your list and it sounds like fun, you're a role player too. There's no harm in just following and just having that moment of a complete reversal. You got a grumpy, heavy guy who's like, well, maybe next time I've got this poetry I've been working on. I don't know. I'm not ready to show it yet. It's too much. And now that's a whole window that if you feel like writing poetry for next game, they can come back and buy a book of poetry. You poor bastard, you now have to write a book of poetry.
So, I have more questions for you. Are you ready?
Yes.
What does your pre-game house rule look like?
Is everybody sitting comfortably? Then please attend carefully and let us begin.
That's really good.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Shoot, I'm throwing mine in. I'm gonna make a new one because that was inspiring. What is your favorite GM moment?
Oh God. A cyberpunk game from high school that I was GMing, a cyberpunk game, and the group were invading a bathhouse in Tokyo, like you do, and they were jumping around. And one of my players, she was running around. They were fighting a bunch of ninjas, and there was, I described them all as having different types of anime hair. And at one point, they're like busting out. And she stopped at one point and grabbed one of the ninjas and just kissed him passionately on the lips, and then jumped out the window. And I had that ninja just sort of sit there stunned, and eventually came around and they sort of willowed, and he was like, I will go anywhere with you. It was very cute. It was like, I've never done this before. This will be fun. Whoop! And and sort of he became enthralled with her and was following her around for quite a while. And that was literally Nameless Ninja for quite a while. So,
Quick GM tip for the audience.
Ooh, okay. We talked a bit about Archetype. I'm going to give you the advanced Archetype theory. There's a thing called Commedia dell'arte, which is practically the origins of theater as we know it in the Western world. It is this really fascinating game where you have a specific set of archetypes that are given a situation. It's kind of like improv, except that there are rules. It's a lot like D&D that way. It's exactly like D&D that way. You have your archetypes, you have rules, and then great actors are capable of creating these really intense theatrical experiences around watching these characters bump off each other, interconnecting and playing off each other the way that the rules demand. And we still use some of these names. Harlequin was one of the classic characters of Commedia dell'arte. Pirouette, Columbine, the Pantalone, Il Capitano. There's a whole bunch of them. There's the old men, there's commodores, there's lovers, there's comedians. And these archetypes, they're a little more advanced, but they're fun to learn about because they really are just the basic DNA of drama. And you can learn how to just plop one of these archetypes into your NPCs and shoot them off with these rules, which are they're very, very old. They're hundreds of years old at this point, and they'll work very well. And if you want to see a movie about some of this, and if you don't mind that it's French and from the 40s and over 3 hours long, I'm so sorry. Children of Paradise is a really, really amazing movie. You can probably find it. It's a classic French film, and it is about one of these players in a Commedia dell'arte theater. And you will see a lot of this actually happening. And it's an amazing film beyond that, but it is black and white, subtitled, and 3 hours long, I do warn you.
So Google it, Commedia dell'arte.
Yeah, Commedia dell'arte and Children of Paradise.
Very good. Wow, it's so much amazing stuff. Thank you so much, Taliesin, for being here and sharing your brain and all your talents. You're awesome. You can find where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Executive Goth, or on Wednesdays on the Wednesday Club at Geek and Sundry Twitch, or on Thursdays on Twitch for Critical Role.
Yes, Critical Role. And as always, I'm Satine Phoenix on Twitter at Satine Phoenix. You can find me every Sunday, 12 to 4 on mazearcana.com. And this summer, you can watch Rudy and I Dungeon Master Fury's Reach on twitch.tv/DND. Taliesin, do you know what I'm going to ask you?
What?
Taliesin, would you please GM us out of here?
Is everyone sitting comfortably? Then please attend carefully as we begin. You look around the room and see the staff have all vanished. Everybody who was around working, bustling, are suddenly gone. The equipment runs, but it is unmanned. Quietly, the lights begin to flicker and blink out as you lose sight of the distant walls. And slowly the furniture seeps and drops into the black until there is nothing left but you and the party, and then just you and your thoughts alone in the black. And we'll pick it up next week.